For $155,000, you better be magic. My boss didn't say it like a joke. He said it like a verdict he'd already written down, one he planned to read out loud later. His name was Graham, director level, always perfectly dressed, always smiling like he was doing you a favor by humiliating you in public. He had a talent for making cruelty sound like leadership. We were in a glass conference room on the 12th floor, quarterly planning, the kind of meeting where people pretend they're aligning, but everyone is really just watching who gets praised and who gets offered up. Graham had my compensation on the slide. Not a range, not a budget line, my exact number. The room gave him the polite laugh he wanted. Tight, controlled, safe. I could feel eyes flicking toward me like they were checking whether I'd flinch. I didn't. I'd learned a long time ago, if you look hurt, someone like Graham makes it a sport. I kept my face neutral and said evenly, "If you want magic, you hired the wrong person. I do boring. Boring passes audits." That killed the laughter. A few people looked back down at their laptops. Someone cleared their throat. Graham held his smile, but his eyes sharpened, like he'd just marked a target. "Boring," he repeated. "Perfect. Because next month the external auditors come in, and I'm expecting boring excellence." He clicked to the next slide as if he'd given me a compliment. But I knew what he was doing. He was planting a story. High salary. High expectations. One person to blame if anything goes wrong. Crescent Bay Logistics wasn't a sexy company. We moved freight, ran warehouses, dealt with union schedules and old billing systems that should have been retired years ago. But leadership wanted to look like a modern tech firm, so they'd been bolting cloud tools onto legacy bones and calling it transformation. The board was nervous. A few big contracts were up for renewal, and clients were asking uncomfortable questions about compliance. The CEO wanted a clean external report she could wave around like a trophy. The CFO wanted proof that controls weren't just words on a slide. And Graham wanted to be the hero who fixed security without slowing the business. I was the security operations lead. No theatrics, no hoodie nonsense. My job was to make sure systems told the truth, access was controlled, and incidents were caught before they became headlines. The work nobody notices until the day it fails. Graham had recruited me a year earlier with the same line they all use. "You'll have autonomy," he said. "You'll build a real program." What he meant was, I'd do the work, he'd take the credit, and if anything looked ugly, my name would be the first one offered to the room. After the meeting, I went back to my desk and did what I always did. Checked the boring systems that keep a company alive. Identity logs, admin activity, privileged access sessions, configuration histories, alerting rules. The stuff auditors love and executives ignore. Most people don't understand logs. They think of them like security cameras, useful after something bad happens. But logs are more than cameras. They're receipts. They're memory. They're the only thing that doesn't get nervous, doesn't misremember, doesn't misplace inconvenient details. I opened the monitoring dashboard and scanned the health signals. Everything looked normal at first. Then I saw it. A gap. Not a complete outage. Not a system failure. Just a few minutes where privileged activity, telemetry went quiet in a way it never should. In my world, a few minutes is not nothing. A few minutes is where damage hides. I checked the pipeline status. No agent crash. No network drop. No expired credential. No alert fired either, which was the most suspicious part. We had heartbeat checks specifically designed to scream if those feeds stuttered. So why didn't they scream? I pulled the alert rule history. My cursor hovered for a second before I clicked, and I felt the small, unpleasant certainty that the answer was going to matter. The change log loaded. An alerting rule had been modified late the night before. The rule that flags privileged administrative actions. The one that should never be touched casually. The change created a mute window. Quiet hours, exactly matching the period where the log gap appeared. The approval line showed the same name twice. Graham. My first thought was the boring one. Maybe he approved something without reading it. Executives do that. They rubber stamp. They delegate thinking to other people. But the second line was worse. The session wasn't just approved under his account. It was executed under his account. I opened the identity provider session detail. The originating device was marked as unknown. Not enrolled, not compliant, not on the list of his usual endpoints. The IP address didn't match the office or his home network. It was the kind of pattern you see when someone is trying not to be seen. I sat back and stared at the screen longer than I should have, because I could feel the fork in the road. Option 1, confront him. March into his office. Ask why he was touching audit controls at night. Force him to explain himself. That's what a younger version of me would have done. The version that still believed the truth wins simply by being spoken. Option 2, document first, quietly, thoroughly, in a way that doesn't depend on my tone of voice or Graham's ability to talk circles around people. Because if Graham was setting me up, confronting him would just give him time to build a counter-story. I chose boring. I took a snapshot of the configuration state and stored it in our compliance vault. I captured the change records. I generated hashes, digital fingerprints, so the state could be proven later without me arguing. I didn't touch anything yet. I didn't fix the alert rule. Fixing it too fast would erase the evidence of who changed it in the first place. Then I checked for one more thing, whether the logs themselves were immutable. They were. I'd fought for that months earlier, and Graham had mocked the budget request. "Why do we need all this?" he'd asked. "Are you expecting someone to delete logs?" I'd answered, "I'm expecting someone to try." He'd laughed. Now, staring at his name in the change record, I realized something that made my mouth go dry. He hadn't just mocked the control, he'd tested it. I picked up my notebook and wrote one sentence. Plain and clean. If he is touching audit controls, it is not an accident. My phone buzzed. A calendar notification popped up for the next day. Readiness check. Attendees included me, Graham, and the CFO. No agenda. I looked back at the log gap, then at Graham's name on the approval line, and felt the coldest kind of clarity settle in. He'd smirked in public about my salary like it was a joke. Now he was doing something in private that could make that salary look like a liability. I closed the dashboard, opened a fresh document, and started building a timeline. Quietly, professionally, like I was preparing for the most important meeting of my life. Because I knew one thing for sure. If this turned into a blame game, the only thing that would protect me wasn't my explanation. It was the record. And the record had already started talking. The next morning, the readiness check invite sat on my calendar like a warning label. No agenda, no pre-read, just me, Graham, and Linda Mercer, our CFO, on a tight half-hour block. That combination rarely meant planning. It meant containment. When I joined the call, Graham was already there, smiling like the day before had never happened. Linda came on last, camera on, posture straight, eyes sharp in that quiet finance way. She didn't do small talk. "I'm getting noise," Linda said. "Operations says access reviews are slowing onboarding. Procurement says vendor approvals are stuck, and I'm hearing the word audit used like an excuse." Graham leaned back, relaxed. "We're fine. We're just being thorough. That's what we pay for." He glanced at me with a look that said, "Perform." I kept my voice flat. "We're being consistent. Consistency is what auditors test." Linda's gaze didn't move. "Are we ready for external auditors to walk in and sample controls?" There are a dozen ways to answer that and survive. Most of them are lies, wrapped in optimism. I picked the one that held truth without lighting a fire. "We're ready if controls stay stable," I said. "Late changes create risk." Graham's smile widened. "No one's changing anything important." I didn't argue. I didn't correct him in front of her. I let the statement hang and watched what Linda did with it. She paused, then asked, "Why would you say late changes if nothing is changing?" Graham jumped in fast. "He's cautious. That's his personality. He sees ghosts." Linda's eyes flicked to me. "Do you see ghosts?" I chose precision. "I see records," I said. "If something changes, the record should match the story. That's all." Graham's jaw tightened for a heartbeat. Then he smoothed it over. "We're aligned," he said, overly cheerful. "He's got it handled." Linda didn't look convinced, but she ended the call with, "Keep me posted. I want no surprises." The moment the call dropped, Graham messaged me, "Come to my office. Now." I didn't go, not because I was brave, because I was done playing a private game in his office where there were no witnesses and no timestamps. Instead, I opened the logging dashboard again and pulled a full change timeline around the gap. First, the alerting rule modification. Second, the muted window. Third, privileged activity during that window. Fourth, the system heartbeat returning like nothing happened. If it had been a system failure, there would be messy indicators, agent restarts, backlog spikes, retries, error codes. None of that existed. This wasn't a machine choking. This was someone holding their hand over the mouth of the alarm. I checked the admin session metadata again. Unknown device, unfamiliar IP, a method that bypassed our usual multi-factor prompts. That last part mattered. If multi-factor had been bypassed, it could mean compromise, or it could mean a legacy token someone kept alive on purpose. So I pulled the identity provider logs for token creation events tied to Graham's account and filtered for older sessions. There it was, a legacy token generated weeks earlier during a privileged approval sequence. It had never been revoked. It had been used quietly late at night, like a spare key hidden under the mat. That wasn't random, and it wasn't thorough. It was deliberate. I created a new incident entry in our internal ticketing system, not a dramatic one. A neutral title, Privileged Monitoring Alert Suppression Review. Then I attached facts, screenshots, exported logs, hash values, timestamps, policy references, everything boring enough to be undeniable. Next, I did the part people underestimate. I protected the evidence without breaking anything. Our log storage had immutable retention. Good. But the alert rule could still be edited again, and the narrative could still be rewritten. So I applied a preservation hold on the relevant log sets, using our documented procedure for audit readiness anomalies. It didn't scream investigation. It simply prevented routine deletion and forced any future changes into an auditable exception trail. Then I copied the configuration state into the compliance vault and recorded the hash in the vault entry. If anyone later claimed that wasn't the configuration, the hash would disagree. At that point, I felt the first small release in my chest, not victory, control. Because now the truth had a seatbelt. Graham called. I let it ring out. He called again. I declined. A third call came from his assistant. Same result. Then the email hit my inbox, sent to Linda, HR, and a long list of directors. Subject: Audit Readiness, Ownership. It praised my leadership and announced I was the control owner for end-to-end compliance assurance. It also noted that any readiness gaps will be escalated through security operations. To anyone else, it read like support. To me, it read like a cage being built in public. I forwarded that email into my incident ticket as context and wrote a single sentence underneath, "Responsibility is being assigned broadly while controls are being changed privately." That afternoon, my access review queue doubled. Warehouse managers started pinging me with urgent requests for exceptions. Procurement asked why a vendor approval was not complete. IT Ops wanted me to temporarily relax restrictions because audit is making everyone nervous. The pressure wasn't subtle. It was coordinated. I kept responding the same way. Short, factual, documented. Please submit through the change process. Please attach business justification. Please include owner approval. Please note this will be visible to auditors. People hate documentation when they're trying to move fast in the dark. Near the end of the day, Linda's assistant sent a new invite. Control review prep. Still no agenda. But this time it included someone from internal audit. My phone buzzed again. A text from Graham. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Stop. I stared at it for a second, then took a screenshot and uploaded it into the incident record. I didn't reply, because replying would turn it into a conversation, and conversations can be twisted. Records are harder to bully. But that was just the beginning. That night, I stopped being the hero. I became the witness. I opened the ethics portal and filed a concise report tied to policy. Privileged monitoring control modified without documented change request, alerts muted, unknown device, preservation steps in place, request for internal audit guidance. No accusations, no emotional language, just a system describing itself. When I hit submit, it generated a case number, a real one, the kind that doesn't care about Graham's smirk. Graham didn't call me into his office the next morning. He booked the small glass conference room off the main hallway, the one everyone walks past on the way to the kitchen, the room that makes every conversation feel like a performance. When I stepped in, he was already seated, jacket off, sleeves rolled, trying to look like the hard-working leader who gets his hands dirty. His phone was face down on the table, like he didn't need it. He needed it. He didn't waste time pretending. Linda's getting spooked, he said. I want this cleaned up before it becomes a thing. I sat across from him calm. Then we should follow the process. Document the change, explain the gap, restore the alert rule. Graham's smile didn't reach his eyes. No, you're going to stop treating this like a crime scene. It's not a crime scene, I said. It's an audit control. He leaned forward. You're missing the point. The point is perception. External auditors come in, they see friction, they start asking questions. Questions become findings. Findings become headlines. And then the board starts asking why we pay you what we pay you. There it was again, my salary as a weapon. He wasn't even subtle anymore. I kept my voice flat. The board should ask why an audit control was muted without documentation. Graham's jaw tightened. Careful. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He slid a printed sheet across the table, a one-page memo titled Audit Readiness Attestation. It stated in neat corporate language that privilege monitoring was continuously active, that no material gaps occurred, and that any temporary interruptions were resolved without risk. At the bottom was a signature line with my name typed under it. I need you to sign that, Graham said, like it was normal, like he was asking me to approve a vacation request. I didn't touch the paper. If I sign this, I said, I'm attesting something I can't verify. He spread his hands. You verified it. You're the control owner. The record shows an intentional mute window, I said. That's not an interruption, that's a change. Graham's smile hardened. You love the word record. Here's a record. Sign it. I stared at the memo again. It wasn't reassurance. It was a trap with a letterhead. I could see the future in it. The auditors find an exception. Linda asks why. Graham points at the memo. And suddenly the story becomes, I lied to cover incompetence. I met his eyes. No. Just that. No speech. No emotion. Graham blinked, like the word didn't belong in his world. No, he repeated softer. I won't sign an attestation I can't support, I said. If you want one, we do a documented review and write the truth. His face changed. The mask dropped enough for me to see the person underneath, resentful, controlling, offended that I didn't kneel. He sat back and laughed once, sharp. Do you know what your problem is? You think rules protect you. Rules protect the company, I said. Graham's tone turned cold. The company protects people who are team players. I didn't respond. Silence is dangerous in corporate conflict, but it's also clarifying. It forces the other person to show their hand. Graham leaned in again, voice low. I can make your life very difficult, he said. You're smart. So I'll spell it out. If you keep pushing this, it becomes a performance issue. You're not aligned. You're creating friction. You're blocking the business. He watched me to see if fear landed. It didn't, not because I was fearless, but because I finally understood something that should have been obvious earlier. This wasn't about security. It wasn't about audit readiness. It was about control, and he was losing it. I kept my hands folded on the table so he wouldn't see how hard my heart was hitting my ribs. I'm not blocking the business, I said. I'm preventing a finding. Graham's eyes narrowed. You think you're the hero? I looked at the memo again and felt something in me break. Not emotionally, but structurally. Like the last piece of denial snapped clean off. No, I said. I think you're trying to make me your insurance policy. His face went still. He didn't deny it. He didn't laugh. That was the realization he couldn't deny it without lying, and lying was the only move he had left. He stood abruptly, chair scraping, loud on purpose. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to stop creating side documentation. You're going to revert whatever holds you placed on logs. You're going to sign this attestation, and you're going to remember who you report to. I stood too, slowly, so my body language stayed calm. I'll respond in writing, I said. Graham's smile returned thin. Of course you will. Magic Boy needs everything in writing. I walked out without looking back. At my desk, I didn't rage text anyone. I didn't post online. I didn't vent in the team chat. I opened my incident record and added a single line item. Director requested attestation inconsistent with control history. Then I did the boring thing that saves you. I created a time-stamped internal email. To myself summarizing the request, the memo, and my refusal to sign without verification. Short, factual, no adjectives. I attached a scanned copy of the memo. Next, I emailed internal audit using the standard intake address. Again, not dramatic. I framed it as a compliance question. A leader requested an attestation. Recent control modifications exist. Guidance requested on appropriateness. I didn't name Graham in the body. I didn't need to. The attachment already did that. Then I waited. Late afternoon, an email hit my inbox from corporate counsel. Subject line, do not sign. It was brief, professional, almost clinical. Please do not execute any audit readiness attestation at this time. Legal and internal audit are reviewing the underlying control changes. We will provide next steps. No lecture, no pep talk. Just a boundary set by someone with authority. Graham couldn't smirk away. For the first time in days, my shoulders dropped. That night, I left at a normal hour. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the wheel, replaying every word Graham had said, every move I'd made, searching for the place I'd misstepped. And I realized something else, quieter but heavier. Graham hadn't threatened me because he was confident. He'd threatened me because he was exposed. When I got home, I didn't open my laptop. I ate dinner standing at the counter like I didn't deserve to sit yet. Then I checked my phone one last time before bed. A calendar invite had appeared for the following morning. Title: Control Review. Privileged Monitoring Attendees. Linda, Internal Audit, Legal, me, and Graham. No agenda, but it didn't need one. And then silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong. The next morning, I walked into the control review, like I was walking into court. Same building, same badges, same bland carpet. But the air was different, tighter, quieter. Like everyone already knew, there was a story unfolding and didn't want to be caught on the wrong side of it. Linda was on the call first. Internal audit joined second. Legal joined third. Graham joined last. He came in smiling, voice upbeat, acting like this was his meeting, like he'd invited everyone to admire his leadership. "Morning," he said. "Happy to clear up any confusion." Priya from Internal Audit didn't react. She had that calm tone people earn after they've seen enough lies to stop taking them personally. We're reviewing privileged monitoring controls and recent administrative changes, she said. This is routine. Graham chuckled. Of course. We take compliance seriously. Priya shared her screen. The log timeline filled the monitor. Clean, clinical, unforgiving. No commentary, just actions, timestamps, and identifiers. She highlighted the alert rule, change, then the mute window, then the gap. Graham, Priya said, can you explain why your credentials approved and executed this change outside the change process? Graham's smile didn't move. Approvals route through me, he said. My team needed a temporary exception. We're moving fast. Priya nodded like that might be plausible, then clicked again. Understood, she said. Then can you explain why the session originated from a device not enrolled in endpoint management, using an address that resolves to a co-working facility? Graham blinked, a fraction of a second too long. Lots of places route through shared addresses, he said quickly. I travel. I work anywhere. Priya didn't argue. She just kept going. The same session used a legacy token created weeks earlier, she said. That token bypassed the usual multi-factor prompts. It remained active without documented business need. Graham leaned forward, tone sharpening. So what? Tokens exist. Priya clicked again. A new panel loaded. Admin actions in the logging workspace. Here, she said, there is an attempt to delete related records. Graham's voice rose. That's ridiculous. It failed, Priya said, still calm, because immutable retention is enabled. For a second, nobody spoke. I watched Graham's face in that silence. The smile was still there, but now it looked like a mask held in place with effort. Linda finally said his name. Not loud, not angry, just disappointed. Graham? He tried to recover with charm. This is being blown out of proportion. We have an audit coming. People are nervous. I'm trying to keep the business moving. Priya nodded once, then moved on, fast. Separately, she said, we reviewed expedited vendor approvals, linked to privileged access. Graham's posture shifted. That was the first real crack. Priya brought up a vendor profile, generic name, generic website, new contract, high billing, privileged access requested. This vendor was granted elevated access, Priya said, approved under your authority. Risk review marked complete in hours. No supporting evidence attached. Linda's expression changed. Not curiosity now. Calculation. What is that vendor doing for us? Linda asked. Graham's eyes flicked to me like he wanted help. I didn't move. It's a specialist firm, he said. Temporary support. Priya clicked to invoices. Multiple invoices. Similar amounts. A pattern, each one just under the threshold that would have required dual approval. Linda leaned forward. Why are the invoices split? Graham's smile finally slipped. That's how they bill. Priya didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She did the most damaging thing you can do to someone who survives on narrative. She read the record. These invoices are structured in a way consistent with threshold avoidance, she said, and the approval trail shows repeated overrides by your credentials. Legal spoke for the first time, voice flat and controlled. Graham, he said, do you have any personal or financial relationship with this vendor or its principals? Graham laughed too loudly. No. Priya clicked again. A corporate registry lookup summary appeared. Prepared by Audit, not me. Ownership chain, family name, connected entity. It didn't need a dramatic reveal. It just sat there on screen like a weight. Graham's throat worked. That's not what it looks like. Linda's voice turned icy. Then tell me what it looks like. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried a new angle. Anger. This is a witch hunt, he snapped. He's been documenting me like I'm a criminal. He's the one creating chaos. Priya didn't even look at me. We're not discussing feelings, she said. We're discussing privileged actions, vendor approvals, and audit controls. Graham's eyes burned toward me anyway. In that moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. This man wasn't furious because I'd disrespected him. He was furious because the systems didn't need him anymore, but that was just the beginning. Legal leaned forward slightly, not dramatic, just final. "We are placing you on administrative leave effective immediately," he said. "Your access to company systems will be suspended. You are not to contact employees about this matter outside counsel." Graham stared, like he expected someone to laugh and tell him it was a drill. "You can't do that," he said. Linda stood up. The movement was small, but it shifted the room. "We can," she said, "and we are." Graham's voice cracked into something sharper. "You're making a mistake." Priya's tone didn't change. "The record is clear." Graham turned to me, face tight with hate. "This is on you," he said. I didn't answer. I didn't smirk. I didn't celebrate. I just gathered my notebook and closed it. That silence hurt him more than any speech could have. The call ended. I walked back to my desk and immediately felt the building react. People whispering, managers hovering, messages hitting my inbox like raindrops before a storm. HR, please be available. We're disabling director access now. Procurement, vendor approvals on hold, urgent. Operations, who do we escalate to? Chaos spreads fast when an executive falls because everyone suddenly wonders what else was false. I didn't run around like a hero. I did boring again. I wrote a short status update for internal audit. Controls stable, alerting restored, evidence preserved, no further changes made. I copied legal. I copied Linda. Then I opened my dashboard and watched the privileged log stream in real time. No gaps, no mute windows, no silence, clean. And in the middle of the noise, I felt a small, sharp emotional snap, like a chain finally breaking. That night, I stopped being the person he could corner in a glass room. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. But I also knew something else. When someone like Graham loses power, he doesn't accept it quietly. He tries to take something with him. As I shut down my laptop, a new email notification popped up, sent company-wide by an automated system. Subject: Leadership Update, Technology Organization. It was short, vague, carefully worded, and the last line made my stomach tighten. Further guidance will follow. Because I could already feel it coming. Not the audit, not the board. The retaliation. The retaliation never came as a punch. It came as paperwork. The Monday after Graham was placed on leave, HR sent a process clarification to the whole org. All privileged access requests would route through interim leadership, and all vendor approvals above a defined threshold would require dual sign-off. It sounded boring. It sounded procedural. But in our company, procedural meant one thing. Legal had taken the wheel. By noon, my calendar was wall-to-wall. Ops wanted exceptions. Procurement wanted guidance. AITA wanted confirmation that disabling Graham's credentials wouldn't break anything. Everyone wanted me to say, out loud, that the problem was solved. I didn't. I wrote everything down. I gave internal audit a clean status update. Alerting restored, log pipeline stable, preservation holds in place, no further control changes since the review meeting. I included timestamps and ownership, no commentary. Just facts that could survive scrutiny. That afternoon, Linda asked me to come to her office. No quick chat, no casual tone. When I walked in, she had a folder on her desk. Printed invoices, approval trails, and a simple diagram Priya had drawn, showing how the vendor contract had been routed around controls. Linda didn't look angry. That almost scared me more. Anger burns out. This was something colder. We confirmed the vendor relationship, she said. Connected family member. Payment structure designed to avoid thresholds. Privileged access granted without a legitimate risk review. I swallowed. So it's substantiated. It's worse than substantiated, she said. It's actionable. She slid one page across the desk. A formal notice from legal. Graham would be terminated for cause. Effective immediately. Subject to final board review. The company would pursue recovery of funds and refer the matter to external counsel for potential civil action. Access revocation was already executed. No drama, no victory lap, just consequence. For the first time since that conference room, smirk! My chest loosened like a knot finally untied. That night, I slept without waking up to check my phone. The next morning, Priya scheduled a short call with me and legal. They didn't ask me to tell my story. They didn't care about my tone or how I felt about Graham. They asked 3 things: what controls existed, what changed, what the logs proved. I answered in the same voice I used when I wrote incident reports, precise and unemotional, because I'd learned something over the past 2 weeks. If you want the truth to win in a corporate building, you don't shout it. You archive it. By the end of the week, the external auditors arrived. 2 people in neutral suits with neutral faces, and a checklist that could ruin someone's quarter with a single sentence. Linda insisted I be in the room. So did legal. We sat in the same style of glass conference room Graham used to stage his little performances. Only this time there was no smirk, no audience laugh track, just the record. The lead auditor asked, "Were there any material changes to privileged monitoring controls in the last quarter?" Linda didn't answer. Legal didn't answer. They looked at me, and for a second I felt the old fear. Say the wrong thing, become the liability. Give them too much, look unstable. Give them too little, look evasive. Then I remembered what Priya had said in that review meeting. The log doesn't argue. It shows. Yes, I said. There was an unauthorized modification and attempted suppression. It was detected, preserved, reversed, and escalated through internal audit and legal. Here is the change record, the restoration record, and the evidence of immutable retention preventing deletion. I slid a packet across the table, neatly indexed. Timestamps, hash values, policy references, a timeline that did not rely on my personality. The auditor scanned it, then asked, "How do we know these records weren't altered after the fact?" I pointed to the hash entries stored in the compliance vault and the immutable storage configuration. "Because the system proves continuity," I said, "and because the retention control itself is auditable." He nodded once, not impressed, not emotional, satisfied. After the auditors left, Linda stayed seated, staring at the empty chair across from her like she was replaying every meeting she'd ever had with Graham. "I should have shut him down earlier," she said quietly. "He was good at the room," I replied. "That's what made him dangerous." Linda's eyes moved to me. "And you?" "What about me?" She held my gaze. "Why didn't you come to me sooner? I could have said a dozen defensive things. Instead, I told the truth. Because the first person someone like that accuses is the person who speaks," I said. "I needed the record to speak first." Linda nodded slowly, like she understood the cost. Then she pushed a sealed envelope across her desk. Inside was an updated roll letter. Reporting line changed. Scope expanded. Compensation adjusted. Not a heroic promotion announcement, just a correction to reality. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just said, "Thank you," because professionalism mattered more than pride in that moment. On my way out, she added, "One more thing." I turned back. Linda's voice was flat again. CFO flat. "Your number." The one he mocked. The board asked why we pay that. I told them, because boring is what keeps us solvent. I walked back to my desk and opened the dashboard, logs streaming, alerts firing when they should. No gaps, no mute windows, no quiet corners. Boring, clean. Later that afternoon, an automated org update hit everyone's inbox. Graham's name was removed from the directory. His approvals disappeared from workflows. His access groups were empty. He didn't get a farewell message. No thank you for your service. No soft landing. Just absence. Exactly what he used to threaten other people with. Only this time, it was earned. A week later, Elise from HR stopped by my desk. "Are you okay?" she asked carefully. I considered it. Then I said the first honest sentence that didn't feel like a performance. "I'm calm," I said. I didn't realize how loud my life got until it stopped. That night, I went home, ate dinner sitting down, and didn't open my laptop after. I kept thinking about that first meeting, the smirk, the laugh. My salary turned into a punchline. He wanted me to be magic so he could pretend the laws of consequences didn't apply to him. But the truth is, nothing about what saved me was magic. It was boring. It was controls. It was timestamps. It was evidence. It was the audit log doing exactly what it was built to do. And the best part wasn't that he fell, it was that the story ended clean. No mysteries, no unanswered questions, no lingering threat. Just a quiet system telling the truth. Every minute, every day, whether anyone smirked at it or not.